Diary of a Suspicious Spy, a detective story for kids about betrayal and mystery. Kids' adventure stories. Written by Jeff Child. Narrated by John H. Feskins. Entry 1. The Assignment. Dainty Village and Fander City don't like each other much. I've seen it numerous times. In fact, they hate each other. They can't stand each other. They constantly belittle each other and gossip until you tell them to change topics. Borders are tight, interaction is scarce, and most of the people from Fander City won't even come to our cozy town. But the people from Dainty Village despise those purple-black beings from Fander City as well. They consider them filth. They think they're better than they are. Sure, it looks that way, but is it really true? Keep reading and find out. I'm not that way, though. I'm pretty neutral. I always was. I find it hard to pick sides, to generalize an entire town and judge them for having been born and raised in a distinct location. It's none of my concern. I really don't care. What I care about is my own morals, the things I believe in most. I believe in a certain degree of honesty, in agreeable conduct, and selfless acts of service to our fellow beings. I care about the courage to fight for what is right and the bravery of saying how it is. That last thing I mentioned isn't easy for a spy, however. My name is Zodius, but my code name is Codius, Master of Disguises. I took that code name to hide my true identity. You see, as a spy, you are under the strict obligation to keep secrets. And although I honor my commissioner and my place of origin, I will show you in this diary how I completely let go of those restrictions in order to maintain my integrity. I will tell you why I decided to throw all those rules away and found a new purpose. The commissioner is my boss. He tells me what to do. It's that simple. However, his missions are always communicated to me in secret. I get an envelope, an email, a text message, or a phone call through a secure line without anyone eavesdropping or finding out about our conversation. However, the funniest cases are when my boss, Commissioner Jaden, shows up in a secret place. Of course, at first he scares me to death by popping up out of nowhere, but afterwards I always appreciate the creativity of it. In the past, he has given me messages by putting his head above the water, diving out of a dumpster, or hiding in a wedding cake while licking the whipped cream off the top. You have to give this guy some credit for his efforts. Nobody expects it, and it's hilarious. Later I would find out about his dark side, though, but oh well, more about that later. "This conversation never took place," is usually the ending line of my boss. He covers up everything he deems necessary. In my backpack, I carry a list of items. A diamond sword, I love that thing, a piece of string, prismarine crystals, and... yes, that was it. For a minute I thought there was something else in there, but there isn't. This is my complete list of items. Some of those items come in handy when I am assigned to a mission. Other ones just stay in there for fun. Whenever I haven't used an item for a long time, I put it in the back on the shelves in my closet. Utterly useless stuff doesn't belong in my backpack. Anyway, now that you know a little about me, I mean, whatever else I tell you is just a bunch of gibberish you probably don't care about, I will narrate to the best of my ability the interesting circumstances that changed my perspective on the politics of our society. Things aren't always as they seem, and finding out the truth can be hard if you don't open your eyes and ears to learn about it. So here we go. The story of how my mission turned into a tense decision to turn my back on everything I was taught. So there I was, minding my own business and walking through a narrow street with trees, bushes, and a line of several tiny houses. "Psst," I heard behind me. I turned around. It was Commissioner Jaden. "Codius, I have an assignment for you." Where was he hiding? I recognized his voice, but couldn't find him anywhere. "Over here, you imbecile, I'm over here," he said. He was hiding in a plant covered with dirt and begonias. It was hard to see him, and he deserved some bonus points for staying in there so long. I could only imagine how long he had really been there. "Commissioner, how nice to see you. Those flowers look good on you," I said while laughing. "Cut the nonsense. I have a top-secret mission. Are you ready to face one of the biggest challenges you've ever faced?" he asked. You always say that, Commissioner, and then it turns out it was just a piece of cake. I know that, but this time I mean it. This is difficult and of the utmost importance. Here, read this. He handed me a piece of paper with some scribbling on it. The back of the paper had a clear message. Must steal cat disc of 13 in the Fander City. Top secret. Don't tell anybody, not even your dog. Destroy this piece of paper by burning it, ripping it, drowning it, putting it in an empty room and letting it decay where nobody can find it, or simply letting a horse step on it. Just some suggestions. The commissioner was a little weird, I thought. Why would he expand on all the ways of how you could destroy the paper? It made no sense, but then again, he never did. I like your suggestions, but do you realize I don't have a dog? I said. No. Next time I'll scratch that. Sorry. So tell me, are you prepared to steal the disc? Of course, sir. Just tell me where and when. You will head to the Fander King's celebration of his wife's birthday, Commissioner Jaden said. I already arranged the invitation. I will also give you the coordinates of the disc, so you can locate it and take it with you without being noticed. Report to me tomorrow at 1700 hours. Yes, sir. I walked away, wondering how he was going to get out of that plant and not stand out in the crowd, but he would find a way. He always did. Entry 2. Party. I arrived at the party that was being held in Fander City. The Queen's birthday was a big day for celebration. Good, I thought. It helps me to stay unnoticed. Nobody is focusing their attention on the disc. I was dressed up in fancy attire. A black tuxedo, red bow tie, and an expensive pair of shoes were my choice that evening. Just like all the other people there, I followed the crowd up the outside stairs into the ballroom of the palace. Cameras were watching me, and I immediately spotted them, noticing the angle at which they were turned. There was a blind spot in each room, which would come in handy. The ballroom was elaborately decorated with gold and mirrors, showing fancy crimson red and royal blue patterns in the curtains and tablecloths. A chandelier was hanging above the hall, with 100 diamond crystals that reflected the incoming light, setting the sphere for the entering guests. Waltzing couples moved on the sound of old-fashioned classical music. Beautiful gowns and ballroom dresses displayed every color in the rainbow, and distinguished gentlemen acted more posh than ever to make a good impression on those they talked to. People socialized, drank, and munched on the snacks that were being passed around. None of the high-class inhabitants of this magnificent city were aware of the fact that they were about to get robbed by me. "What do you think about the new statues in the courtyard?" a woman asked. "Lovely, simply marvelous," a man said. "Who was the designer again?" another posh lady asked. "The Duke of Endington," the man said. "I heard it was just a little boy who had nothing to do with his life, got bored, and drew a funny figure to go along with his toys," I said, suddenly joining the conversation I overheard. "And where would you hear such preposterous nonsense, young man?" the gentleman in the suit asked. "I talked to a little birdie," I said. "I'm sorry, sir. I was only joking. The designer must be a genius, I'm sure. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mr. Finnegan. Ladies." I nodded at the 4 women surrounding the gentleman, who just became a lot less popular. "Well, you certainly show a distinct sense of humor," the man said. "Unlike yourself, I presume? I'm glad you're laughing so hard, though, because I forget to laugh when I'm in the presence of such eloquent beauty." Some of the ladies were blushing. One of them grabbed a fan and started fanning her face, secretly hiding behind the object so she could look over it, thinking it would help her fade into the background. "Now, if only I could decide which of you fine ladies to ask for a dance," I said. I saw the desire on their faces. One of them giggled and stepped back. Another's pupils got very big. "Ah, I know," I continued. "I forgot I was being late. The king asked me to accompany his lovely wife and daughter to introduce the party and the birthday of his wife. I'm already late. Excuse me, ladies, I paused. I sniffled. I looked a little weird, got out my handkerchief, and was about to blow my nose. "Hold on a second. I have to... Whoa, whoops!" I said as I dropped my handkerchief on the floor. "Oh my, I've never seen such terrible manners," the gentleman said, looking the other way. Ladies, sir, if you could please excuse me, I said. With pleasure, the gentleman said, sticking his nose up in the air. I left the awkward situation and smiled. I didn't do anything without a plan. I hadn't really dropped the handkerchief on accident. Before I went to them, I had observed several guests, following the guidelines and the information I had received from Commissioner Jaden. The arrogant gentleman in the suit who thought he was so high above everyone else was actually carrying the access card to the room behind the throne room, the one in which the cat disc was hidden. If only the information were correct, it would help me acquire the disc in a heartbeat, because all I was doing when I accidentally dropped my handkerchief was bend over and snatch away the card from the gentleman's pocket in a quick, unnoticeable move. During my training as a spy, I had developed skills like that, skills that were excellent for those who want to pickpocket in a fancy ball like this one. What an odd young man, the man said, watching me walk off, not realizing I had just lost the important access card in his pocket. Everything went according to plan. Entry 3. The Truth. Satisfied with the way I handled the situation in there, and especially with the slick trick I used to steal the access card, I left the ballroom and snuck behind the scenes into the small hallway behind the throne room. A high-tech system showed that a code was required to get in. I glanced around, making sure I wasn't being followed. Nobody there. The coast was clear. Ready to enter the correct room to complete the mission. I took the access key out of the left chest pocket in my blouse and inserted it into the alarm system. Access granted, is all I heard. I opened the heavy door and saw nothing. It was pitch black in the room. Where was the light switch? I put the access card back in my pocket and felt the surface of the walls to find the light switch. Don't bother, a voice in the dark said. The light switch is on the other side. Who was that? I was shocked to hear another person in the room. I was nearly desperate to find out who beat me to the punch, or who figured out I would come here. I reached out to the other side and hit the light switch. The lights in the room turned on. On a big chair behind the desk sat a shady figure with a brown hat and sunglasses. He leaned backward comfortably and didn't seem to care one bit about what was going on. Confidently, he left his dirty boots on the desk and smirked before Zodius walked over to him. Who are you? I demanded, and how did you know I would be here? Oh, I see a lot more than the cameras do, the guy said. He got up and took off his sunglasses. Standing behind the desk, he continued his explanation. Looking for this, aren't you? He asked, holding the cat disc in his right hand. How did you... What is going on here? I asked. That's exactly what I wanted to know, which is why I broke in before you did. Unlike you, I am not from Dayti Village. Actually, I just live around the corner, 2 blocks away from this palace. Sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you, so I'll let you know what's happening here. I still didn't trust this suspicious individual, but I was anxious to hear what he had to say, so I stood still and listened patiently. I totally forgot to introduce myself. I go by many names. I am a spy like you, but I work for Fander City. For now, you can call me Terry. You may wonder why I am in this room since I work for the other side. Well, let me tell you what I found. First of all, do you have any idea what's on this disc? No, I admitted. I was just given the assignment to steal it, that's all. They sure know how to cover up their sleaze, Terry said in a cynical way. I hope I can convince you to see things from a different perspective. I mean, you probably know, just like everyone else, that the people in Fander City and Dayti Village aren't really fond of each other. But the truth might shock you. Neither of these towns are without corruption. Tensions have been high for the past few decades, each of them claiming that the other one is a threat to their beautiful society. Both cities have been about to declare war a dozen times. Then why didn't they? I asked. Well, the reason they wanted to declare war is to take each other's resources. You're most likely aware of the gold near the city here, and the coal and gas near Dayti Village, aren't you? Of course. Right, so there's your motive. But to the average citizen, this is not enough. They have to believe they are the good guys, that the others have a legitimate reason to be overthrown. And that, my fellow spy, is what they have been working on for years. I'm starting to get it, I said. Why should I believe you? Terry took his belt off and drew a gun from his pocket, after which he placed it on the desk and put his hands up in the air. I'm here. You can just kill me now if you think I don't speak the truth. I know you have a diamond sword in that bag, so go ahead. Okay, I said. Even if I were to trust you, what do you want to do about it? Propaganda is everywhere. In Dayti Village, the plaques and posters are all over town, portraying Fander City as some evil monsters. Not everyone is sure about the validity of the government's claims, but most people are starting to lean towards the war attitude. I've been wondering about that myself, Terry said. We have to come up with a plan, you and me. So what's on the disc? Oh yeah, the disc. I forgot to tell you. Are you ready for this? Soldiers of Dayti Village blew up their own mine to make it appear as if there was a menace. They made sure to leave behind enough evidence to show that Fander City soldiers did it, even though they had nothing to do with it. You know, Fander army pieces, flags, and small items from this city, to indicate that they had done it and sloppily left behind a few objects. This disc, however, contains secret footage from a bypassing civilian who put the whole attack on tape. When he was discovered, he ran for his life and handed the tape to the Fander King, who had one of his servants put the video on this disc. Terry put his belt back on and his gun in its holster. This disc could disclose the fact that Dayti Village soldiers blew up their own mine and tried to blame it on Fander City. Don't you see? Your commissioner is just trying to cover up their tracks so they have a reason to start a war. I thought for a moment. I saw the seriousness of the situation. After a second or two, I said, But if the Fander King shows this video to Fander City, they will feel angry as well. They will discover that Dayti Village is making an attempt to blame for something they didn't do. Exactly, and that's why none of these rulers can use this against the citizens of their cities. I just barely found out, but I saw you in the ballroom and I just knew you weren't from around here. That's why I just waited here after I got through security myself. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? I asked. I don't know. How can I know if I'm thinking what you're thinking if I don't know what you're thinking? Terry asked, returning the question. Well, I just thought we were thinking the same thing, I said. How do you know if you don't even know what I'm thinking? Terry asked. Never mind, I answered. This is going nowhere. So here's what I was thinking. If I'm correct, the hatred towards the Fander people is bigger in Dayti Village than the hatred towards the miners in Fander City. Exactly. So what? So the one more likely to change their minds and become friendly and peaceful again is the king of Fander City, not the mayor or commissioner in Dayti Village. Terry nodded. I'm still following you, he said. We need to give the Fander King a sign, a token of friendship. That way it will trigger a generous response in him, and the threats will be over. Maybe, Terry said. It's worth a shot. What do you have in mind? Entry 4. Mixed Up. I did have something genius in mind. After leaving the ballroom and celebrating for a little while, I went home. Terry promised to destroy the cat disc and agreed to see me the next day at 2000 hours in the street next to the palace. At home, I drew a map. I made a plan. I put everything on paper I knew about one of the most valuable items in the world, emerald ore. I knew they had it. They protected a big block in the main village hall, surrounded by alarm systems and guards. It was so valuable that handing this over to the Fander King would help them ease up immediately. If only the king would be generous enough to return something to Dayti Village, our scheme would work. If not, the villagers here would claim the Fander people would have stolen it, and it would trigger a war anyway. It was a fragile situation, with emotional minds of dumb crowds ready to blow up over nothing. But if I didn't do anything, the war would eventually be triggered anyway. I prepared notes, looked at times, and measured the outside walls of the village hall. The next day it would happen. I would steal one of their most valuable items from my own hometown. When I woke up, I took a walk. As I strolled through the village streets, I noticed the posters in the back alleys with words like, "Don't trust the Fander people," and "The differences between Fander civilians and rats, none." Some of them were more extreme than others. This hatred was pure brainwashing. I had been to Fander City numerous times, and none of this was true. It was all just a big conspiracy to trigger a war and take their resources and their gold. But I was determined to stop this foolishness. Someone had to show them the truth. I had switched sides. I had turned around. Sometimes it felt like I betrayed my own town, but I knew it was right. It was the only ethical thing to do, and it was going to happen that day. Entry 5. Lasers. I covered up my face like a ninja. I wasn't going to show anyone my true identity, not when I was stealing something. It would be terrible if anyone found out it was me. It was late. I had waited till dark. I put on my backpack and headed to the village hall. It was surrounded by bushes and trees and a beautiful green garden. At first sight, none of those things seemed dangerous or potentially alarming, but I didn't trust it. I stepped closer, little by little, and then I saw it. The blocks on the side weren't just blocks. I blew in the air. The breath from my mouth uncovered what the blocks were really for: laser beams. After searching in my backpack, I took out the prismarine crystal I had always kept with me. Carefully, I placed the crystal between the laser beams. The alarm didn't go off. The crystal had some reflecting or absorbing effect on the lasers. This was perfect. I held the crystal in the middle, and like an experienced thief, I cautiously stepped through the laser beams, ducking to avoid the upper beam and lifting my feet to get over the bottom one. Fortunately, I was able to do all this without making a sound. I pulled the crystal out of the laser beam and continued to the front door. It took me minutes to crack the code of the alarm system. The villagers always had an obsession with the number 5, so codes like 555 or 345 were the only combinations I tried. With a little gizmo I had bought, I could put in as many codes as I liked, so that the alarm wouldn't go off after my second or third attempt. After about 10 different combinations, I did it. Slowly opening the door, I kept the lights off and snuck into the hallway. No guards. Good. According to the map and the information I was able to get, the block of emerald ore should be in the center of the building. Stepping sideways with my back against the walls, I took caution and I took my time. If anyone was in this building, I would make sure I wouldn't get caught. After leaving a couple rooms, I entered the designated room. There it was. It was beautiful. It had a black-grayish color and some green specks in it. Certainly, this looked like an extremely valuable natural resource. The block was protected, however. It was surrounded by a glass tank or container, and it would trigger the alarm if lifted from its pedestal. No worries, though. I had it all under control. Entry 6. Alarm! I reached in my bag again and pulled out the piece of string and the diamond sword. I leaned over and observed the object for a minute or two. Okay, I told myself. I can do this. Just take it really slow. I lifted the glass container. Nothing happened. Nice, I said. Now just the weight trigger. I put the glass container on the floor. Then I tied the diamond sword to the piece of string and held it in my left hand. I put the piece of string with the sword on it between the pointing finger and the thumb of my left hand. With my right hand, I lifted up the block of emerald ore. With my left hand, I slowly let the sword drop onto the pedestal, replacing the weight of the block. If my calculations were right, the sword would weigh approximately the same as the block. Slowly. Got it! Yes, it was the same weight. I was so relieved. I put the block in my backpack and snuck out. This was great. I did it. I got the emerald ore, and I did it all by myself. This truly was one of the hardest things I had ever done, but in the end, I succeeded. I just showed them that... Oh no, what happened? I looked down. So that was what triggered the alarm. I completely forgot about the laser beams in the yard. In my excitement, I had just walked out with the block in my bag, being proud of myself and letting my guard down. And this is what I got for it. Trouble. And dozens of guards on the way to seize me. I got caught up in my emotions. I panicked. I stood there like a stupid stiff, frozen and baffled by the dire circumstances I had just put myself in. I didn't know what to do or where to go. "There he is," I heard them shout. I had to get out of there. It was already too late to sneak out, and now they were after me. I ran as fast as I could, jumped over bushes and walls, turned around corners, knocked over crates with market food that were left in front of the homes, and even climbed on a rooftop. They almost lost track of me. My agility had nearly beaten them. Leaping from rooftop to rooftop, I got out of sight, at least of the fat, slow ones that were after me. One of the guards, however, kept up and didn't let me go. Why did I have to be confronted with some athlete or sports champion? I jumped again and rolled to break my fall. I ran up to a wall, grabbed onto the ledge, and pulled myself over it. I looked back, but he was still there, chasing after me as if it were the last thing he did. Aha! That will be my escape route, I thought as I saw a chimney on the left. I skipped to the chimney, climbed into it, and let myself drop. Poof! I landed on a cold, spiky log. Ouch! I cried out. As quickly as I could, I stood up and ran out the front door of the home I invaded. Nobody had seen me. I disappeared in an alley, never to be seen again by my pursuers. At home, I took the block out. I went to my closet and grabbed some paper, ribbons, and a marker. I became creative. I decorated everything nicely. The note on the wrapped gift I made read, "To the Fander King, from Deity Village. We want you to have this. Consider it a token of our goodwill. We appreciate everything you do and hope to work together with you in the future." I attached the note to the wrapped block, finished it up with some smooth ornaments, and left my home. It took an hour before I reached the street where the Palace of Fander City was. I looked around but saw nobody. Was it time yet? It was 5 minutes early, so maybe I just had to be patient. Psst, I heard suddenly. I turned around. It was Terry. "Do you have the emerald ore?" he asked. "I do." "Great! Hand it to me and I will lay it in the throne room. The king will be thrilled." I handed him the block and watched as he took a sneaky side door into the Fander Palace. My job was done. Now all we had to do was wait. Entry 7. Treaty. The next day there was a big celebration in town. I slept in since I was so tired from all the anxiety and excitement. The parade woke me up. There were trumpets, tubas, drums, and event dancers. Everybody was happy. I looked out the window and noticed how many people from Fander City were intermingling with the residents of Deity Village. Most people were laughing and enjoying the festivity. Most people. When I saw Commissioner Jaden's face, I hid behind the curtains. I wasn't ready to confront him yet. I thought for a minute and got prepared. I put on my shoes and my jacket, then I opened the front door and moved between the many people in the crowd towards the town square. This is where it would all take place. This was the town's big moment. There was a stage set up. The mayor of Deity Village and the Fander King were shaking hands. Smiling at each other, they exchanged unheard words that signified hope. The Fander King took the cloth off a cushion one of his servants was holding. Underneath it was a gigantic Fander pearl. It was pretty and shiny. It was worth a fortune. The mayor accepted it gladly and gratefully. Then he turned to the masses and beckoned us to be silent. "With this, we have decided to form a union between the two towns," he said. "Fander City and Deity Village will work together as partners and exchange economic benefits to help each other grow stronger and more prosperous. This will be the single most important contract in the history of our village. Long live the king!" Everybody cheered. Peace was secured. The contract was officially signed, and the two rulers stepped down to shake hands with the people in the crowd to make a friendly, politically correct impression. It was a happy moment, but not everybody was happy. I felt someone tapping on my shoulder. "I know it was you," Commissioner Jaden said when I turned around. "You stole that emerald ore. I don't know how you did it. I don't know how to prove it, but I just know it was you. That crystal sword on the pedestal was yours. I don't know anyone else who has one like it." I lifted my mouth to the side and smirked, closing my eyes halfway and raising one eyebrow. "Great job for figuring it out, genius," I said. "But before you exert yourself to find some kind of evidence of my betrayal, I have to warn you that I have seen what's on the cat disc. Do you have any clue what it may do to your career if I tell anyone what your soldiers did with that mine?" "You wouldn't dare," he said. "Try me," I answered. "Even if you would, how do I know you even have that disc? You never reported to me. Maybe it got lost or stolen. I think you're bluffing." "Am I?" I asked rhetorically. He had nothing else to say. He was furious, but he didn't want to take the risk. Of course I was bluffing anyway. The disc was already gone. But who cares? He didn't know that. The end.